Welcome to the Freebirth podcast, a supportive space for people who are learning, exploring, and celebrating their autonomous choices in childbirth. Together, we'll unpack truths, share personal stories, and claim our ability to birth freely and intuitively. Here's your host, Emily Saldea.
Have you ever heard of a 10-minute birth? I hadn't until I sat with Lindsey and listened to her story. After having 4 deeply unsatisfactory births in the hospital, she knew she wanted something different with her 5th child. Realizing that they wouldn't be able to afford a midwife, Lindsey chose Freebirth and began her life-altering shift from playing the good girl to becoming the self-assured, powerful woman she is today. Lindsey shares with us the story of her most recent birth, her first daughter, that from start to finish lasted 10 painless minutes.
Okay, well, I'll start with my mom is a very medicalized person herself. She's a nurse, a registered nurse, and has always worked in like an emergency room setting or a doctor's office. She's very diabetic and has thyroid issues and plethora of health problems. So her pregnancy with me was a rough one. And she had me via C-section at about 34 weeks. I was born very healthy. I was 6 pounds, and the doctors were determined that there had to be something wrong with me because of my mom's health issues.
Right.
So she said my feet were black and blue from being poked so many times to be tested for my blood sugar. And she didn't get to see me for almost 2 days because they kept me in the NICU trying to figure out what had to be wrong with me. I'm still perfectly healthy.
Yeah.
Yes, and I suppose it's common for, unhealthy mothers to have unhealthy babies, but I hate that that's initially where it has to go, and doesn't always have to be an unhealthy baby coming from an unhealthy mother.
No, certainly not. And I think it actually can be very reassuring to pregnant women to find out or to know that your body, for better or worse, your body will prioritize your baby. And so, it might be very depleting to us, but the baby is quite protected. So, how would you say that why is this where you start with? How did this color your experience with your first pregnancy?
I can remember even as a child when my mom would talk about, how I was born, it bothered me. It just seemed so wrong and awful. And I can remember thinking, poor baby me. Yeah, I probably just wanted my mom. And I knew that I wanted to not be separated from my babies. And I knew that I wanted better than that. And I felt like my mom and I had deserved better than that also.
Yeah, for sure.
So early on, I wanted to be a midwife. And then somehow throughout the years that got lost and something else became more important. We got horses and I wanted to be a rodeo queen, and
nice.
That did happen, but not, when I was 16. So we've moved on from that as well.
Awesome.
Back to midwifery. I got pregnant when I was 20. And because of my medicalized upbringing, the first thing I did was seek out a doctor.
Right. It's just what you do.
Well, yeah. And when your mom goes, well, have you made your doctor's appointment yet? Oh, yes, Mom. Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Well, the pregnancy went well. I was very healthy. I gained a little more weight than I probably should have. I think by the end, I ended up gaining almost 70 pounds. I was eating unhealthfully and kind of just whatever I wanted because, I was eating for 2.
Right. Totally.
And my doctor was a man in his late 50s, early 60s, and was very much, hello, patient number 72. What can I do for you today?
Yeah. Who are you again?
Yeah. So there was no personalized care. There was no care. It was just, I went in, I did what I was told, and I left, and that was it. I went and bought a book written by another male doctor, Your Pregnancy Week by Week, and, followed it to a T, which probably suggested vaccinations and synthetic vitamins and monthly, weekly doctor's visits.
Yeah, all the stuff.
Yeah. How to prepare for your potential C-section or episiotomy. But I went into early labor at around 34 weeks, and I went into the hospital, of course, because I was contracting, and somebody helped me because I can't do anything for me. But I was young and I didn't know any better.
Totally.
And I ended up staying the night and got on magnesium sulfate, and the contractions stopped. And we went home. And luckily, nothing else exciting happened again until about 39 weeks, when I went in for my almost final prenatal visit, when he told me that my baby was very large and I was very small. And if I continued the pregnancy any farther, there's a really good chance that I would not be able to birth vaginally.
Makes my blood boil.
And he insisted that I schedule my induction date that day.
So predictable.
So we scheduled my induction for November 14th, 2003. I was to come in at 8 a.m. And he gave me an Ambien to take the night before.
Wow.
Because, most women can't sleep. So take this.
Yeah, and that's perfectly safe for a baby. My goodness.
I'm sure it was. And silly 20-year-old me didn't think to question my doctor.
No, of course.
So I took my Ambien, like the good girl I was, and went to bed, and woke up very groggy and confused at 3 a.m., soaking wet. And I went to the bathroom and stood up and couldn't figure out why, after I had just gone to the bathroom, did I pee all over the floor. So I grab a towel and I'm cleaning up, my mess. And gosh, I make more of a mess. I'm like, what is wrong with me? So I go to get back into bed and realize, oh, my bed is soaking wet too. Gosh, dang it. How much water did I drink?
Yeah.
So I start to change the sheets when I stop myself, and I'm like, wait, hold on. This isn't pee. Wake up, Lindsey. Wake up.
Yeah.
So at this point, I'm finally with it and realizing that my water has broken. And wait, where's my husband? He was nervous himself. He had not taken Ambien. He had gone to the store at 2 a.m. to stock up before the baby came.
Oh my God.
So I'm home alone, like doing my makeup and getting dressed. And he gets home with all these grocery bags.
I like picturing you putting on makeup on Ambien. It's like clown makeup.
Yeah. Woohoo! I was ready. I was going to look nice for my baby.
Totally.
So he gets home, hundreds of grocery bags in hand, and he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, my water broke. Hi, where were you? So we put all of the frozen and refrigeratable items away and get in the car. And by the time we drive the 20 minutes to the hospital, I'm having regular, uncomfortable contractions. And the first thing we do is get into a room and they test to make sure that, in fact, it is my water, which of course it is. And then, the monitors are on and they're starting an IV and starting the Pitocin because my contractions weren't enough, I guess. And they were in a hurry, probably. The rest of it gets a little hairy because of, I'm guessing, the interventions that happened that didn't need to happen. The Pitocin causes a 6-minute contraction. And I have like 3 doctors and 7 nurses in my room, and they're flipping me over onto my left side and putting oxygen on me and down the Pitocin. I don't think they turned it back on again after that. Because I was regularly contracting just fine on my own. And
God, that's so dangerous.
It was 5 a.m. when we got to the hospital. And I'd say I was having the 6-minute contraction somewhere around 10 a.m. So they turn everything down and kind of step back after that. And when it comes time to, I should add that I did have the epidural. And It was so strong. I couldn't feel a thing.
Totally.
You could have cut my legs off with a butter knife, and I would not have known. They told me to scoot down in the bed, and I'm like, I can't scoot.
Right.
No, move your hips towards us. I'm like, I can't.
Yeah.
I can move my shoulders. That's about it. It was the worst feeling ever. When I'm finally fully dilated and the doctor comes in to tell me how to push, he brings a student in with him and says, "Oh, she can come too, right?" Yeah, sure, okay.
Right. What are you going to say? No?
Yeah, no, get out of here. I could have, I should have maybe, but I didn't.
Yeah,
I said,
but in a way, like, you can't. Like, the power structures and the authoritative, and expected submission of that paradigm. I mean, yeah, maybe you should have, maybe that was actually your truth, but in what world, when someone comes in to deliver your baby, are you going to say no or cause any sort of conflict?
No, and you're right. Authoritative. They do have that authority feeling about them where you almost feel like you can't really say no. Like it's almost not an option.
Yeah.
Especially when they word it like, this is okay, right?
Totally. And they're all functioning under, this totally not legal thing called implied consent, where it's just, you're going to consent to whatever we say or do because you're on our turf.
And because you're not saying no.
Right. Totally.
So the student is standing watching and he's, we're counting to 10 and I'm holding my breath and pushing, and the baby's coming down and I'm asking, am I a good pusher? I'm young. I've never done this. I don't know what I'm doing. The only thing I've seen is women giving birth on the TLC channel. And they assure me, oh yeah, you're doing a great job. So I keep pushing. And the fetal electrode scalp monitor that they had on his head monitoring his heart rate had fallen off. And they couldn't get it back on to get his heart rate. And because he was so low in the birth canal, they also couldn't get the external monitor on his heart rate. And so because of that, he goes, we can't detect your baby's heart rate. We need to get him out right now. I'm going to use the vacuum. And so they put the vacuum on his head and they ripped him out of me. He was 8 pounds, 14 ounces, and my first child. And afterwards, they had to reattach my right labia.
Yeah.
So my first birth experience was one that I definitely needed to heal from.
Yeah, for sure.
Physically and emotionally. The second was my smallest child at only 7 pounds. He was seen, I was seen with, I saw a midwife for his pregnancy, and she was more of a hands-on midwife, I've heard the term, and, stripped my membranes at 38 weeks. And
what? Oh my gosh.
He was born at 39 weeks and was only 7 pounds. And the only complaint I have with his birth is I was laying there going, I'm feeling some pressure. Even though I had the epidural, I could still feel pressure this time. Oh, that's normal. They tell me that's normal. We'll check you here in about half an hour. Your water's broken. We don't want to introduce any sort of germs, which, yay. Okay. But I'm feeling pressure though, still. She brushes me off again. I push the nurse call button again, really feeling some pressure here. They assure me again, that's completely normal. Finally, another 5-10 minutes go by. I push my nurse call button again. I think at this point, they're just annoyed with me. I'm like, look, I'm really feeling pressure. She goes, fine, we'll check you. So she has me lay back and she goes to check me and goes, oh God, baby's head.
No shit. God.
And so she goes, do me a favor. Just give me one little test push. his head comes out.
Yeah. Wow.
She goes, oh my God, call so-and-so, the midwife's name. I don't remember her. She walks in the room and goes, oh, hi. And she has one glove on. And I have a picture of this. It's hilarious. And the other glove is halfway on. And she's looking down going, oh, there's the baby.
Mm-hmm.
Because as soon as she walked in, there was one more push and baby was out and on the bed. And they go, oh my God, pick him up, because nobody else had gloves on. So they couldn't touch him. And she goes, oh, wow, he's tiny and the cord's tiny. Were you a smoker?
Wow.
No, thank you. I wasn't a smoker. And yes, he's beautiful, isn't he?
Right. It's not like he was 4 pounds. I mean, 7 is a perfectly average, normal size.
Yes. But he was perfectly healthy. And no, I was not a smoker.
God.
Third baby, also hospital on a military base. My doctor loved ultrasounds. I cannot tell you how many pictures of that baby I got. He would, it was almost like we were buddies, you know. He was trying to do me a favor and he'd be like, hey, I got an extra 20 minutes. You want me to go grab the ultrasound machine?
Ew.
Back then I was like, oh my gosh, really awesome.
Right.
You know, another chance to see my baby. And this guy really likes me. How cool. What did I do to my child? But I was begging to be induced with him, which I kick myself now. I've learned so much since, and the old me is so ridiculous. But I was 39 weeks and my mom was in town and I had to have the baby before she left.
And if you don't know, you don't know, you know, I can empathize with how painful it must be to now know better. Absolutely. And I could go
make these different choices.
Of course, you know, but at the same time, you were a part of a system that this is just what you do.
Yeah, it was. It's what everybody did. That's what a lot of people still do.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's hard looking back, and it makes it even harder sitting here telling these stories because I haven't, since I have acquired these new freeing stories.
Yeah.
So third baby, I begged to be induced. He was comfortable, didn't want to come out. They said, you know, fine, come in, we'll induce you if we have a bed. So we stood in the waiting room for probably 4 hours waiting for a room to be open so that they could start the induction. We get in there, they start the Pitocin, I start contracting. They probably did some membrane stripping. After I was dilated to about a 4 or 5, they came in and broke my water. After that, it was kind of hard and fast, and they almost didn't get the epidural in time. And I did end up feeling everything, and it hurt because of the Pitocin.
Mm-hmm.
Pitocin contractions regular contractions are nothing compared to Pitocin contractions.
Yeah, they're torture.
And he was born vaginally and healthy and 8 pounds, 9 ounces, and in about 5 hours, I think. And the doctor said, gosh, if I had known it would have been this easy to induce you, I would have done it last week.
Mm-hmm. It's like cattle, man.
Yeah. Fourth baby was born also at a military hospital in Alabama.
Well, let me pause you right there and just say, so obviously you're going to get to the point where, you know, you started considering something different, but at this point you've now had 3 babies, you know, in the system. And is there a whisper inside of you that's like, you know, it could be better, or are we about to get to some like pivotal epiphany moment, or is it like a slow drip that it's coming through you?
I lived in fear. I feared my mother. I feared the doctors. I feared, you know, potentially killing my baby. I have to do everything I can to keep us healthy and safe. And what I was taught, and the only thing I knew as healthy and safe, was hospitals and doctors.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that weird hippie crunchy friend that was like,
right,
no, you don't need the hospital, man. I wish I would have had that person, you know? I had my mom who was like, go get your flu shot and go see the doctor extra if you can.
Right. Just go as much as you possibly can.
It's the only way.
Okay, so now you're pregnant with your fourth and you guys have relocated?
Yes, into Alabama, which is not a state to have a child in.
Yeah.
The hospital we were at, the honestly only thing I can remember about his birth, because it was, just like all the others, Pitocin, somewhere between 5 and 10 hours, and fortunately ended in a healthy baby. However, after he was born, they took him and laid him in like an incubator warmer thing that was in the room next to me. And they put a thermometer electrode thing on his chest and, a hat and an ankle bracelet so nobody could kidnap him. And they told me, you leave him right here. Don't pick him up. You can't pick him up until at least 2 hours, because he has to reach a certain temperature and we want him right here.
I know, man. I've seen that so much. That is the most backward ass shit I have ever heard.
I honestly think it would be worth the price of the plane ticket to go back to that hospital and find those doctors and nurses and go, why did you make me leave my baby laying there for 2 hours?
Well, girlfriend, and it's not just that hospital. I mean, that is the standard. That is the norm and has been for a hot minute, that the only possible way we could raise the temperature of a new, baby is to be under heat lamps when his mother's warm, self-regulatory breasts, are a couple feet away. It's just women are treated so disposable, and all that matters is technology. Oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you.
It's the opposite of what we should do.
Of course it is.
The baby from its mother.
I mean, a technological birth is the opposite of what we should be doing, right? Like it's absolutely insanity. Okay, so you're separated from your little one for absolutely no reason for 2 hours.
Yes, we're just sitting there staring at him going, look how adorable he is. We love him so much. And after I had him, we were done, we were done having babies. And I felt like I was missing something, not as if I was missing a child, but I was definitely missing something. I breastfed all of my children well past 6 months. So it wasn't that I was lacking in any sort of connection or anything like that. I loved them all very much. They were all successful nurses. They were all healthy babies. But I really felt like I was missing something. Something was off. And I had no idea what it was.
Wow.
Until I had gotten pregnant again 5 years later. And I had a job, so I had insurance. And at this point, I had a crunchy hippie mama friend and was like, I am totally getting a midwife this time. And I even want to try to have this baby at home. As soon as I found out I was pregnant. So I'm looking up all the local midwives. And
are you still in Alabama?
No. Oh, sorry. At this point, we're in Washington.
Okay.
So we're in Washington State, and I'm looking up all the midwives, and I go and visit one, and she's super sweet and very calming and almost like a really friendly, loving grandma, and it just felt wonderful to talk with her. And I thought, gosh, this is it. This is what I was missing. She cares. She's kind of mothering and it's more natural. My insurance will not cover it. And so that really didn't work for me. So at this point, I'm thinking, I really don't want to go to a hospital and I really don't want to go to a doctor, but I can't afford a midwife out of pocket.
Yeah.
And oh dear. So I happened to be on the phone with this crunchy hippie mom friend, and I'm complaining about not being able to afford a midwife. And she goes, well, Lindsey, you could just do it yourself, right? And I tell you, it was like, how sometimes they show that like light bulb that goes on over your head? Well, for me, that light bulb like exploded into fireworks. It was like, oh my God, I can do this. because I can. I mean, all
Right.
they do is, they make sure I'm healthy. I know when I'm healthy. When do I go to a doctor? When I need a doctor. This isn't any different. I'll know when I need a doctor. So that was really my big aha moment of, oh, I don't need someone else to help me. And so that was the point where I got back into, I really want to be a midwife and I want to study about all of this and learn all the things. And I mean, everything from natural living to natural eating and birthing babies on your own and organic stuff. It was like my medical wrong world had suddenly turned right.
So when you aligned with Freebirth, how did your partner experience that? And did you share it with people in your family, like your mom?
Getting my partner on board was a chore. He's kind of like me. If you can prove it, he'll go along with it. So we just did a lot of research together. Anything I found that I read or watched or heard from a friend, I would share with him. And then if he questioned it, I'd be like, okay, fine, let's study this some more together. And we would, we would Google it, we would YouTube it, we would find a book and look it up any way we could to answer that question or, calm that fear or find out why. So it was a good bonding experience for us because we learned together and it was less convincing him and more just, well, let's figure this out and see if this is a fit for us and learn everything we can.
And you can do a lot with an open mind. If your partner, even if he's resistant or nervous or scared or whatever, skeptical, if he has an open mind, the truth comes out. Like science is on our side, I mean, the studies are on our side. So with an open mind, you can do a lot.
Yeah, it really is true. All you have to do is be willing to want to learn, and it's right there.
And did you choose to share it with other people?
I did talk to my mom about it, my medical nurse
how'd that
mother.
Go?
I'm not going to lie. Her first response was rude and awful. And she said something along the lines of, if you really loved that baby, you would go to a hospital and see a doctor.
Wow.
And I said, well, Mom, I do really love this baby, and that's why I'm staying at home.
Exactly.
And if you really loved me, you would educate yourself and listen to what I have to say.
Yeah.
We didn't talk for a while after that about it. It was like we just kind of pretended that subject didn't exist.
It's so interesting, too, because you would think that she would want something better for you than her experience and the experiences that you had. I mean, this is such a moot point, obviously, because that's not how this works. People are completely loyal, to this system, regardless of what happens. And as we know, the vast majority of people who have any sort of, let's call them fake emergencies or even real emergencies, believe that they were safest, even if the medical model caused them in the system, but it does.
Thank goodness they saved my baby when
after
it was causing.
They
caused this for your baby.
Totally. Okay, so you didn't talk for a while. You kind of just let it lie for a little while, and then what?
She was going to be here if she could. It was well, call me if it's between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. and I'm not busy. So that kind of hurt a little that she didn't want to be more involved because, gosh, what grandma wouldn't want to be involved in the birth of their grandchild, I think.
My mom declined. I invited her and she was like, I really think I'd be too nervous. And I was like, okay, cool, no problem. But it hurt my feelings a little bit too. Well,
it makes me feel better to know that your feelings were hurt by that too.
Oh, for sure.
This is your experience.
Well, I think it's going to hurt our feelings a little bit kind of anytime we extend a vulnerable invitation of any kind, right?
And get a no thank you. Yeah,
totally.
I suppose that's true. But I wasn't able to call her because my first contraction happened at 3:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was not the time to call mom. And I wasn't sure if it was labor because it didn't feel like I thought it would feel. You know, it wasn't painful. My water hadn't broke. And I didn't feel like this was it. I had gone to bed fully unaware and almost in a, oh, it's just not going to happen kind of mood, when I'd spent the whole week beforehand going, is this it? Nope.
Totally.
Well,
that happens, right? You get to a point where you're just like, it's not going to happen.
For me, it was when I gave up of thinking that it was going to happen. That's when it happened.
And what week are you at this point with the fifth baby?
I'm 40 weeks, 5 days.
Nice. So that's your longest.
Yes, I had never gone full term.
Well, yeah, you kept getting induced. Totally.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm 40 weeks, 5 days, and I wake up with not an uncomfortable feeling, just I'm contracting and I can feel the contracting. I don't know how else to say it because it's not painful and it wasn't pressure yet. It was just tightness, I guess. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, me being awake wakes up the husband, and I'm walking in circles, and he's like, oh, is this it? I said, I don't know. I'm just owning it for now. I'm walking around and feeling it, seeing if it's going to stop or keep going or get worse. I don't know. And so he says, okay, well, I'm just going to sit here and read then. So he's sitting there reading, and I'm walking around, and I start stopping and breathing a little. And he's like, okay, do you want me to get the pool? At this point, I'm still not ready to commit that this is labor. And I'm like, no, don't get the pool. Because God, I would hate to have any sort of water in it and then have it to sit here for another week.
You're like, obviously, I'm going to go back to sleep.
Yeah, totally. This isn't labor. I'm not having a baby right now. So I keep walking. I keep contracting. And at this point, I think they're only about 3 minutes apart. And that's how they started. And I say, okay, fine. Why don't you get the pool? It's been about half an hour now of this. It's still going. I think, if anything, maybe it would feel nice to sit in the warm water. So he gets the pool out and starts filling it up, which is good because it gave him something to do other than ask me every 2 minutes if this was it. Mm-hmm. So when it's about half full, I'm like, okay, that looks good. I want to get in. So I get in the pool, and, we light a candle, and I've got some music going, and we've got the lights up, and it's super relaxing and almost like a spa, Mm-hmm. And I'm totally loving this. And as soon as I get in the water, it starts getting serious. It's more than just tightness. It's tightness and pressure. And I'm having to sway a little, and squatting in the water feels super good. And then I'm asking him for a cold towel for my forehead because I'm getting way too warm. And after I've been in the water for maybe 30 minutes, I look at Chad and I say, I don't think this is going to take very long. And he's like, okay, well, he's just sitting there going, I wish there was something I could do because,
sure.
I really didn't need anything from him. I didn't need a back rub or anything. So we're just sitting there hanging out basically. And another maybe 45 minutes goes by and my body starts pushing. So it was really a 2-hour easy water birth. He did come out with the cord around his neck. And as soon as he was fully birthed, we just slipped it over his head and brought him up to my chest. And we were lucky enough to get the last of his birth on video. My husband had set up the camera without the memory card and realized at the last minute that it was without a memory card. So we do have his birth on video, fortunately.
Beautiful. And how did you feel right after? And what was the placenta's birth story?
Well, Chad goes, oh my gosh, we have a baby, he's super excited, not sure what to do. And I'm just going, oh my gosh, that was so crazy. Whoa, what just happened? A 2-hour birth. I never thinking that I would wake up and go, gee, I wonder if this is going to be a baby. And then 2 hours later be holding a baby. And just a minute later, my, at the time, 9-year-old walks in and goes, "Mom, can I come in?" And of course we're like, "Yes, come in, come in, come in." And so he was awake and heard the whole thing.
Aw.
His room was just down the hall, and he said he waited until the end because he wanted to leave us alone until the baby was out.
That's cute.
I thought it was too. But it also made me kind of sad, thinking that maybe he did want to come in and he felt that he shouldn't, because I totally would have been fine with him coming in.
Mm-hmm. Had you guys talked about that with the kids prior, like that they were welcome to be there?
Honestly, I don't know if it came up. I want to say that, yes, we had mentioned, you guys might be here when the baby's born, and if you want to watch, you can. But that, we had planned to have the baby in our room in the pool. And I think the majority of the response was, "We'll hang out upstairs and come down right after."
And I think exactly. And I think the older that kids get, the more mom and dad's room becomes like a private place.
Sure. We're not supposed to go in there.
Yeah, I think just kind of instinctively privacy increases as the whole family gets older.
Definitely.
Who knows? Maybe he thought you guys were having sex.
Those are some strange noises.
He's like, I'm going to wait and see if I hear a baby cry at the end of this.
That's funny. That could very well be it. I'll have to ask him.
So do you remember the placenta coming out?
It came out fairly quickly right after. I had gotten out of the pool because it's just what felt comfortable to me. It was, okay, baby's out. I want to get out and sit down and hold him and dry off. I think I was sitting there holding him, and I was like, oh, grab the bowl.
You could feel it.
I knew it was there. And so I laid him down on the bed carefully, and his name was Miles, by the way. I laid Miles down on the bed and just carefully turned off of the bed and burst the placenta into the bowl. It came out easy and whole, and I had very minimal bleeding, no tearing. Beautiful. He was perfect and healthy and pinked up right away and weighed 8 pounds, 9 ounces, just like my third child.
And was this your 5th boy?
My 5th boy.
Wow. And with that pregnancy, I guess I should have asked this earlier, did you seek any medicalized care for the pregnancy, or was it totally unassisted?
It was totally unassisted. After, I guess I kind of skipped that part, didn't I? After I went and met with that initial midwife and then realized that I couldn't afford her and we couldn't have her at home anyway, I took my own care into my hands, and I checked my weight as needed if I felt like, gosh, how much did I gain this month? If I went to the store, I'd check my blood pressure just to make sure it was at a healthy level. And with me, I have a relatively low blood pressure on average. Mine's only, like 90s over 50s, even throughout pregnancy, and have had doctors in the past go, "Are you always this calm?" So I check it just to make sure it was still nice and low, which it was. And my mother's diabetic, so if I was at her house and felt the need to, I'd check my blood sugar just to make sure that I wasn't, out of control or out of range. But otherwise, I just went by how I felt. I felt healthy. I felt, thirsty. I drank water. If I felt hungry, I ate healthy food. I went on plenty of walks, and I went swimming, and I ran up and down the stairs the whole time. Chasing the kids.
Right. You also, you had 4 kids. Good to stay active, or easy to stay active with a handful of kiddos.
I didn't slow down.
So how did you feel in your body and in your heart and in your mind and just like your whole family and your energy field in the days and weeks and even months following Miles's birth? How did that feel to have accomplished this epic feat?
It just felt like the way life is supposed to be. It felt like I was finally myself because I was taking care of myself. I felt like I was in charge of me. I didn't have somebody else telling me how I needed to take care of me.
God, that's so powerful.
I think everybody should be in charge of themselves.
Right? Crazy notion, huh? As an adult.
Crazy thing. We should all have this awakening of, I need to be in control of me. I don't need you to be in control of me.
And, as we know, that is not a singular event, that filters into and flows into every part of your life and who you are and your relationships and choices that you'll make. I mean, it becomes a completely new paradigm of being when you experience what it is like to be in full self-authority.
It really has become like my way of life.
Yeah. Beautiful. And so then was this little sixth one, the most recent, a bit of a surprise pregnancy?
She was quite a surprise. She was not expected. I was still nursing full time, and I think he was 16 months when they're almost exactly 2 years apart. But with her, it was no question that we were going to do it ourselves again, mm-hmm. because to us, after the first experience, there was no other way. Mm-hmm. And was completely unassisted, never went in and saw anyone until I was 26 weeks. And my husband, who was extremely impatient, had to have a small ultrasound. He was brought up the same way I was, very medicalized. And it has been really difficult to get that out of him.
Yeah, for sure. It's like a religion.
Now.
Yeah.
So if for some chance, which I'm saying there's not because I'm planning it as such, but there won't be any more surprises. But if there would be, I would definitely avoid an ultrasound mm-hmm. in the future.
And I mean, now there's those blood test sneak peeks, where it's just a blood test and you can determine the sex of the baby with actually much higher accuracy.
Yeah.
Which if you're going to do something, for anyone listening, I would do blood over ultrasound.
Okay, so we're expecting our first girl at 26 weeks. We find out it's a girl. And I have a perfectly normal, wonderful, easy pregnancy. I've never experienced morning sickness.
Wow.
So that was a plus. And I thought for sure that, if I were to have a girl, I'd for sure be really sick, because everybody says with my girls, I was really sick, or with my boys, I wasn't, or if it's different, if it's a different sex, then it was a totally different pregnancy. And it wasn't. It was totally the same as the boys, which was a surprise to me, but at the same time not, I guess, because maybe it's just how pregnancy is for me.
Right, exactly. That makes way more sense to me than that somehow the genitals of a baby determines how a woman feels. That seems a little silly.
It does seem silly now, but I mean, you've heard that too, right?
Yeah, totally. But there's so many myths, as we know, about all this stuff. But anyway, so you're having your little girl finally after 5 boys. That's so fun.
I just enjoyed this pregnancy a lot. I mean, I love being pregnant, and having a girl was not really different than having a boy or expecting a girl, but in a way it kind of felt different. I don't know how to explain it. It's a tough one.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, it's having a daughter. It is different.
I just felt, I don't know, whole, I guess. I'm sitting here looking at some of my maternity photos as I talk, and I'm trying to find the right words, and it's really difficult sometimes. But I really loved being pregnant, and I really connected with her, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
And I went to 41 weeks in one day. So again, the longest pregnancy I had had. And I had no signs of impending labor ever, no Braxton Hicks or, prodromal labor, whatever you want to call it, no practice contractions. I didn't lose any sort of mucus plug. I didn't have any sort of, this might be labor. Literally nothing that made me even think I was about to have a baby. So when I went into labor with her, it was very unexpected. We had gone to bed at about 10 p.m. We co-sleep, so our toddler was with us and between us at the time. So we laid down, we're, cuddled up and probably talking or reading a book or something. And we finished the story and roll over to get comfortable. And I'd been laying there for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and I kind of felt like I had a gas bubble. I don't know how else to explain it. But I ended up not having gas. And I just thought, well, that was weird. And then I had a mild contraction that wasn't anything laborish. And after it was finished, I had to go to the bathroom really bad. So I scoot to the edge of the bed as best I can at this point and waddle to the bathroom. And as soon as I go to sit down, my water breaks all over the floor very loudly. Like it could have been in the movies. Mm-hmm. It was like somebody just dumped a gallon of water out of a bucket onto the floor from 5 feet up. And my husband from the other room in bed goes, "Oh shit."
He's like, I know that noise.
Yeah. And at this point, I'm like almost out of breath because my body is going, "What's happening?"
Yeah.
And I just go, "Pool now." Because we had actually had the pool blown up even already. So Nice. It was really ready to go. So he sets it on the floor and gets the hose attached to the shower head and starts it going in the pool. I'm trying to pull off my wet pants and walk back to our bedroom. And as I'm walking back to our bedroom, my body starts pushing. And I'm like, what? No, I can't do this right now.
What?
I get to the bed and I pull my pants off. And my body pushes again. And I'm like, what? And I reach down and there's my baby's head. And I'm like, oh my God, we're having her right here, right now.
Oh my God.
And so he looks in the pool and he goes, well, there's not much water in there. You want me to help you get in? And I just laughed and said, no, we're having her right here on the bed. Not birthing a baby into 3 inches of water. I look back and laugh at that often.
Yeah, totally.
So one more push, her head is out. And then one more push and the rest of her is out.
Oh my God.
So from the time my water broke to the time she was born was literally 10 minutes.
Right. And if we add, 2 more minutes with that one mild contraction or even the gas bubble that wasn't a gas bubble, it was like 12 minutes. Wow. Okay. So how did it feel afterwards? She's now in your arms. That just happened out of the freaking blue. And how do you feel? Are you just in absolute shock?
I think so. I remember saying things like, oh my God, that was the craziest thing. And how long was that? What time is it? And I remember somewhere in the middle just telling him, grab my phone and take some pictures. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I didn't tell him to take a video. But
maybe because you were in the middle of a 10-minute labor.
that could be it. I wasn't really thinking. But I'm glad that we got the pictures that we did.
Wow. That is amazing. So really, truly nothing. No indicator, no waves, no nothing. Wow.
I mean, every time I went to the bathroom, I'm like, come on, mucus plug. No. Mm-hmm. Nothing to where I'm like, oh, hey, it could possibly be in the next couple days. No hope.
Right.
And then just like a freight train, she just flew out.
Maybe this is a kind of a stupid question, but I feel like I just have to ask because it was 10 minutes. How, was it really painful having it be, I mean, I'm trying to imagine what it would be like physiologically that she was already so low. Yeah, that she literally could emerge in that short of a time. So she must have been, obviously very optimally positioned and very low. And what did it feel like? Like how could you describe it? Because I've never talked to anyone who had a 10-minute labor. So can you speak to that? Like what it felt like?
I can do my best. So I keep trying to pick this apart in my head and go over okay, how exactly did this happen?
Mm-hmm.
What was I feeling? My theory is the gas bubble that I felt was either her and the water bag coming down or potentially my cervix dilating. But but I don't know. I did attempt to check my own cervix, which I don't recommend to anyone unless you really feel the need to, I guess.
Yeah.
But I was unsuccessful. My cervix was always too high for me to feel. So I had no idea. I could have been, 5 centimeters for weeks and had no idea.
Oh, you mean you tried to check pre-labor?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Oh, yeah. And not during. I couldn't have touched my cervix if I wanted to.
Right.
But so I don't know if, did I dilate it all at once? Had I been open for a while and that was just her head coming down? I don't know what that thunk feeling was that I felt.
And would you describe the labor, the beyond precipitous labor, as painful or painless or just like total shock and it happened so quick it almost wasn't even like, I don't know, noticeable? Like what are the words you would use to describe the physicality of a 10-minute labor?
I definitely would not say painful. There was a lot of pressure and I could definitely feel her shoulder or something on my bladder as she was coming out, which still it doesn't feel like something was injured. It just something is different. Like she got caught up on something in there. But then afterwards, of course, was fine. And it wasn't painful. It was, again, I just say pressure, just really felt like something being pushed really hard.
Yeah.
And I felt, I don't know, a fullness, I guess.
And how did
it is really hard to describe.
Totally. I can only imagine. And how did she come out? Was she ready to go or was she a little stunned? I mean, I would imagine.
She was ready to go.
Really?
She came out and was instantly crying.
Wow.
And she was like, thank God I'm out of there.
Yeah, I would have expected a little shock or something with such a quick birth, but I guess not.
You would think. And bruising, I was worried that she would be bruised because Miles was born in 2 hours and his face was a little bruised. His forehead and nose were. So to be shot out in 10 minutes, you would think there would be some bruising and there wasn't.
Wow. She was just ready
I think we both got lucky.
Wow. That is so crazy. I love it. And then the placenta, same thing right after?
Hers was a little slower coming out and was actually only it got stuck halfway out for like 5 minutes or so.
Whoa, interesting.
I found it interesting too.
Like it had emerged beyond the cervix or?
Oh, you could see it. It was outside of my body.
So it was like hanging out in the vagina.
Yes.
Gotcha. Just taking its time.
Yeah, it was a little slower than last time to the point where I was like, okay, come on.
Yeah, totally. I don't need a placenta hanging out in my vagina. Thank you very much.
But it did finally come out. And unfortunately, I wanted to keep my placenta, but as soon as it came out into the bowl, I urinated all over it.
Oh, yeah. Me too. Yeah.
So it's like, well, rinse that off and freeze it. We'll do something with it someday.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. And how did your body feel after such a quick birth?
Honestly, I felt great. I felt amazing. I was really cold. I remember the whole rest of that day and night, I was freezing.
Interesting.
It was January. But I think just because I was on the smaller end, I don't have a lot of body fat. And I really felt like I just lost my personal heater.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Wow. That is just so cool.
One of my favorite parts of her birth was that our 2-year-old was there for the whole thing.
Oh, right. Because he was in bed.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
He just stood in the wings silently and observed. He didn't He didn't make a sound. He didn't come in. He just like stood at the doorway and was like, whoa.
Wow.
And he has not left her alone since. He is absolutely in love with his little sister. He just hugs and kisses on her all the time and is so careful because I think because he saw her being born. I mean, I'm sure every sibling loves their little brother or sister. But when you're there watching them come out of your mom, I think it's a little different.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I actually don't know that every, especially toddler, 2, 3, 4-year-old loves their little sibling. I've seen a lot of, a lot of jealousy, a lot of trouble integrating a new baby into the family. And across the board, the family births that I have witnessed or spoken with, women who have family births and where their children are present, there's just less of that, all the way to what you've experienced of just total, pack welcoming and love and healthy integration. I think that it can make a huge difference, which totally makes sense.
Yeah, the way we come into this world and what we're surrounded by totally defines who we are, I think.
Well, and versus,
helps you anyway.
I mean, I've doulaed hospital birthing, stories where they have to drop the toddler off somewhere in the middle of the night and the kid's like screaming, not understanding why their parents are dropping them off to wherever, a family member or a daycare or whatever, and then they return home 3 days later with a baby. Like that's confusing. That's really confusing.
I think I've never looked at it from that side before, and that's awful.
Yeah.
I would hate that. I can't even imagine.
There's a lot of dynamics there that seem very hard for a young child to wrap their head around.
That would be really difficult.
Well, I love those stories. Oh my goodness. And what a just inspiring journey you've been on. I mean, you're just such a shining example of, like all of us, a woman being born into the system and having medicalized parents, and well, maybe not all of us, but certainly me too. And then just, slowly but surely finding your way out of it. And the biggest part is having the courage to really do it. I think a lot of women dream about a home birth, or a lot of women say they want a free birth, or they like the idea of it, but just the steps to take and the fear to face and the deprogramming that it requires, it's not for everybody. So it's so inspiring that you were so indoctrinated into the medical model, had 4 of your babies in that system, and then just found your way out and had these absolutely ecstatic, euphoric birth experiences.
The deprogramming is definitely the hard part.
Mm-hmm.
But, gosh, once I saw that light, I couldn't unsee it.
Exactly.
And it's really hard not to try to go to everyone and go, hey, listen to me.
Yeah.
You're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to hear that, and they tell you that you're crazy.
Well, right. And it's, it is like a religion to question someone's religion, their loyalty to this paradigm. It's offensive, I think, and obviously from women like us, we're coming at it from a very protective perspective. But yeah, everyone has to find their own way. And unfortunately, as you know, so many women, they eventually leave the system like you after having seen, how let down they're going to be by it. And that's sad. And one of my biggest hopes with this podcast is that first time mamas, will, if this is the right decision for them, will make these choices before they have to experience, the inherent violence of the system. Which is why we share these stories, to learn from each other. Because if we can accelerate, whoever's listening to this episode who hasn't had a baby yet, if we can accelerate her learning, if that's what she wants, the better. We all will rise, right? Less babies will be born into trauma. Less babies will spend 2 hours separated from their mothers, because someone hopefully will hear your story and say, nope. I'm going to learn from Lindsey, and I'm not going to do that.
That makes me happy. I hope that the world can be a better place and that all babies can be with their moms when they're born like they should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a story you gave your family. I mean, what healing. And, like we were saying earlier, you can't go back, and there's some, I'm sure some real sadness about some of the things that happened with your first boys. And what a victorious, vindicated story your children are all going to grow up with, of through your own learning and your own healing and your own courage to make different choices. Even the boys that were born in the hospital are still now growing up with the story of your journey of learning, that the safest place to birth is actually at home. It's so powerful.
Yeah. And I have talked to them about their birth stories. They all know how they were born, and they all obviously know how their two younger siblings were born. Mm-hmm. And a couple of them have said, kind of wish I was born at home.
Yeah. Yeah. That's understandable. I wish I was born at home. I wish you were born at home.
Yeah, everybody should be born at home.
Yeah, anyone who wants it. All right, well, thank you so much. That was an awesome, awesome story. I'm excited to get this episode out.
Thank you.
That's it for today, everyone. Join us next week for another episode of the Freebirth podcast. Thanks for joining us, and remember, your body, your choice. Lots of love.